March 1942, North Atlantic. 40 degrees north, 30 degrees west. The merchant ship SS Oakbank shuddered as the torpedo struck below the waterline. Metal screamed. The hull split open like paper. Freezing Atlantic water rushed into the engine room with the force of 1,000 hammers. Sailors scrambled toward lifeboats as the deck tilted 30 degrees. Some made it. Most didn't. Within 4 minutes, the Oakbank disappeared beneath black waves. 43 men died. 3 survived long enough to freeze to death in the lifeboats. Before we continue, if you're finding value in these untold stories of World War II, please hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from viewers around the world. Your support helps us bring these forgotten heroes back to light. This wasn't exceptional. This was Tuesday. In March 1942, German U-boats sank 100 Allied ships. April, another 86. May, 125. The numbers climbed like a death toll carved in ice. Admiral Karl Dönitz called it the second happy time. His wolf packs were strangling Britain. Britain had 6 weeks of food left, maybe 8. Winston Churchill later admitted the U-boat was the only thing that truly frightened him during the entire war. Not the Blitz, not invasion. The silent killers beneath the waves. Because if the convoy stopped, Britain would starve. And if Britain fell, Hitler won. The British had Alan Turing's bomb machines at Bletchley Park. Brilliant devices. They'd broken the Luftwaffe and Army Enigma codes. But in February 1942, the German Navy introduced something new. The 4-rotor Enigma. Mathematically, it had 158 billion trillion possible configurations. Turing's machines were designed for 3 rotors. Against 4, they were useless. The Atlantic was turning red. And then someone remembered an engineer in Ohio. A man the Navy had already rejected. Twice. A man without a PhD, without publications, without credentials. A man who worked with oil-stained hands in a cash register factory. His name was Joseph Desch, and in 18 months he would build machines that would save tens of thousands of lives. Machines the academic establishment said were impossible. Machines that would turn the tide of the entire war. The Navy didn't want him. They wanted a scientist. What they got was something better. They got an engineer who knew how to build the impossible and make it work. Joseph Desch was born in 1907 in Dayton, Ohio. Factory town, working-class roots. His father assembled parts on production lines. His mother raised 6 children in a house with 1 bathroom. There was no money for MIT or Harvard. Barely enough for food. But Joe had a gift. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. Connections where others saw separate parts. At 15, he built a radio receiver from scrap metal and wire. At 17, neighbors paid him to repair their electrical equipment. He understood how things worked, not from textbooks, from taking them apart and putting them back together. He studied electrical engineering at the University of Dayton, a local Catholic school. Decent, but not prestigious. No groundbreaking research, no famous professors. Just solid technical training and hands-on work. He graduated in 1931, during the Depression, when jobs were scarce and hope was scarcer. National Cash Register hired him in 1938. NCR made cash registers and accounting machines, industrial equipment. Desch worked in the research lab, developing electronic components, vacuum tubes, high-speed circuits, switching systems. He was good at it. Better than good. He could design circuits that shouldn't work and make them work anyway. When war began in 1939, Desch tried to enlist. But without a PhD, the Navy rejected him, telling him to return to cash registers. In 1942, he applied to the Manhattan Project, rejected again for lacking academic credentials. Despite his unmatched ability to turn theory into working machines. Back at NCR, he spent his days on commercial work and nights experimenting with vacuum tubes and high-speed circuits, pushing boundaries unnoticed. Then in April 1942, the Navy called Commander Ralph Mador arrived in Dayton with an impossible problem: Turing's electromechanical bomb couldn't break the new four-rotor Enigma in time. The math was brutal. Each additional rotor multiplied the possible configurations by 26. The four-rotor Enigma wasn't just harder to break, it was exponentially harder. 158 billion trillion combinations. Testing 20 configurations per second, the speed of Turing's machine would take longer than the age of the universe. Desch studied the documents. 3 days, he barely spoke. He mentally disassembled the problem. He saw what the British were trying to do. He saw where they were failing. And slowly, he began to envision something different. The British approach was mechanical. Rotating wheels, physical connections. Reliable, but slow. Scaling it up meant building machines the size of houses. Still too slow. Desch saw a different path: pure electronics. Vacuum tubes instead of relays. Electronic switching instead of mechanical rotation. It would be fast, credibly fast. But vacuum tubes failed constantly. They burned out. Lost vacuum, developed shorts. Nobody had built a large-scale electronic computing system. It was theoretically possible. Practically, it was considered impossible. Desch looked up. I can do it. But it won't be like what the British built. It'll be completely different, and you'll need 100 of them, maybe more, operating simultaneously. Madar was stunned. 100 machines. Bletchley Park had 6. You're talking about an industrial operation, a factory. Desch nodded. That's what you need, not a laboratory. Mass production of decryption. It was insane. Unproven technology. Hundreds of vacuum tubes per machine. Millions of electrical connections. If it failed, it would be the most expensive waste of the war. But Meter looked at the casualty reports. He calculated how many sailors would die waiting for a safe solution. And he made a decision that commanders rarely make: a bet on the outsider. 18 months, total freedom. Meter agreed. Desch would build the machines. He cleared an entire floor of NCR Building 26, sealed it off with guards and blackout windows. Then began constructing industrial-scale electronic computers no one had attempted. Each machine was huge, 10 feet tall, 6 feet wide, 6 tons, powered by 1,600 vacuum tubes, and capable of testing 1,000 Enigma configurations per second, far beyond Turing's. But tube failures threatened everything. Desch worked with RCA and Sylvania to create reinforced, long-life tubes, then designed cooling systems, fans, ducts, air conditioning to control the extreme heat and keep the roaring machines alive. Then there was the wiring. 20,000 electrical connections per machine. 20,000 points where failure could occur. Desch developed color-coded wiring schemes, trained technicians in precision soldering, implemented multi-stage quality testing. He had to do it 121 times, not prototypes. Production machines, built on a factory floor when the concept of computer barely existed. The first machine went operational in September 1942. 5 months, proof of concept. Desch tested it against known Enigma messages. It worked. Hours instead of days. Meter ordered full production, turning Building 26 into a non-stop factory. Technicians soldered circuits, women assembled panels, engineers tested prototypes, and Desch solved problems at the center. The Navy needed operators for the machines, hundreds of them, so they turned to the waves. In late 1942, recruiters quietly sought women skilled in math, logic, and pattern recognition without revealing the mission. 600 volunteered, arriving in Dayton through 1943 for intensive training. They learned to read panels, spot patterns, and catch rare stops as machines tore through encrypted messages. The work was exhausting, demanding total focus to avoid missing crucial signals. Shifts were 8 hours. Felt like eternity. dozens of machines roaring simultaneously. Heat from the tubes made Building 26 suffocating even in winter. Noise was constant. Electric hum, fans, relay clicks. Speaking required shouting. Many used cotton in their ears. Communication became nearly impossible. And they couldn't talk about it, not to family, not to friends, not even each other outside Building 26. Letters home were censored. Any mention of machines or codes was cut out. Families knew only that their daughters were doing Navy work in Dayton. The isolation was psychologically crushing. Some couldn't endure it. They left, but most stayed. They developed deep bonds, helped each other through brutal shifts, celebrated when machines found particularly elusive stops, cried together when news of sunken ships arrived. They were young, barely 20. But they carried responsibility that men decades older found daunting. Without recognition, without glory, no, without knowing if their work mattered. May 1943. The first real naval enigma message was fed into the Dayton bombs, an intercepted transmission from the North Atlantic. The British had captured it, but couldn't decipher it. They sent it to Dayton, a test. Desch monitored personally. 20 bombs operational. He distributed the message among them. Parallel processing, each machine testing different configuration ranges. The machines roared alive as Waves operators watched. 3 hours in, Mary spotted a pattern on Machine 7. An officer confirmed it Dinnitz's order to reposition U-boats with precise coordinates and tactics. Desch felt relief. 18 months of exhausting work and unproven technology had finally paid off. Building 26 cheered, then returned to work. One message was nothing. Dunnett sent hundreds. By late 1943, over 100 bombs ran non-stop. Intercepts arrived constantly, prioritized and assigned to multiple machines. Bombs found rotor settings. Analysts extracted full text. At peak, they broke 3,000 messages a day, nearly everything Dunnett sent. Attack coordination, resupply requests, fuel status. Torpedo inventory. The Allies knew where every U-boat was, where they were going. When they planned to attack, it was like playing poker with the opponent's cards face up. Dunnett's played blind. The Allies saw everything. Statistics began changing dramatically. May 1943, the month Dayton bombs began operations, 41 U-boats were sunk. 41 in 1 month, unsustainable losses. Dunnett temporarily withdrew U-boats from the North Atlantic, tried to figure out what went wrong. He never did. Germans knew Enigma had been compromised in some cases, but they believed the 4-rotor naval version was secure, mathematically impossible to break, their scientists assured them. So the problem had to be something else. Better Allied radar, improved depth charges. They never imagined that in Ohio, 600 women and 121 machines were reading every word they transmitted. With access to German signals, the Allies turned the Atlantic War into a scientific operation. Washington's Anti-Submarine Center updated maps in real time as Dayton decrypted messages. Dunnett issued orders. They were intercepted, sent to Dayton, and broken within hours. Convoys rerouted, escorts positioned. U-boats arrived to empty seas or ambushes. In September 1943, Dunnett deployed a 15-boat wolf pack against convoy on 202. Every message was read. The convoy shifted north. Escorts struck the submarines instead. 3 U-boats were sunk, 4 crippled. On 202 passed safely. Sinkings collapsed. U-boat losses soared. The hunters had become the hunted. In May 1943, Dunnett considered Enigma compromise, ordered investigation. German mathematicians analyzed the system. Conclusion: impossible to break without capturing machine and codebooks. While Allies had captured some 3-rotor machines, they'd never captured an intact 4-rotor naval machine with current codes. What Germans failed to consider: You didn't need to capture a machine if you could build something that processed millions of configurations hourly. The concept of large-scale computing simply didn't exist in German thinking. For them, decryption was manual, human, slow. The idea of electronic machines processing combinations at impossible speeds was beyond imagination. So Dönitz concluded Enigma was secure. The problem had to be something else. He improved operational security, changed codebooks more frequently, implemented stricter radio silence. All futile. Every new code configuration was broken in Dayton within days. Every transmitted message deciphered within hours. There was bitter irony. Enigma was brilliant. Mathematically elegant. Germans had reason to trust it. But they trusted too much. Assumed complexity was defense enough. Didn't anticipate a determined American in Ohio would build 121 cabinet-sized machines. Operated by 600 women, processing billions of combinations daily. The impact went beyond ship statistics. It transformed Allied strategy. The Normandy invasion deed, June 1944, depended entirely on Atlantic control. Millions of tons of equipment, hundreds of thousands of troops had to cross the channel. If U-boats infiltrated the invasion area, catastrophe. A sunken transport could kill 5,000 soldiers. Delay invasion for weeks. But the Allies knew where every U-boat was. Days before D-Day, anti-submarine task forces swept the English Channel. Every detected U-boat relentlessly attacked. Many sunk. Others so damaged they returned to base. Crucially, deciphered messages showed Dönitz had no idea where invasion would occur. Germans expected Pas-de-Calais, narrowest channel point. Dönitz positioned U-boats accordingly. When invasion happened at Normandy, U-boats were in the wrong place. Repositioning time gave Allies critical window. During repositioning, every Dönitz order was intercepted. Allies knew exactly which U-boats were coming, from where they were found, destroyed before threatening invasion fleets. Result: 0 Allied transport ships sunk by U-boats during D-Day operations. 0 complete victory. Ensured invasion proceeded as planned. Perhaps most profound was psychological impact. U-boat crews realized something was terribly wrong. Veterans reported Allied attacks were supernaturally precise. Escorts appeared out of nowhere, exactly where U-boats were. As if the enemy could see through water, U-boat morale collapsed. In 1942, U-boat service was elite. Extra pay, prestige, tip of German spear. By 1944, it was death sentence. Mortality rate, 75%. 3 out of 4 men who served died. It's worse than Eastern Front infantry. Worse than fighter pilots. Deadliest service in German military. Recruits knew this. U-boat training lost volunteers. Experienced crews requested transfers. Commanders became cautious, hesitant to engage. Wolfpack tactics requiring daring coordination became impossible when nobody wanted to attack first. Dönitz tried everything. Introduced Type 21 submarines. Revolutionary design, could remain submerged indefinitely. Arrived too late. Too few. Developed snorkels. Allowed battery recharging without surfacing. Helped marginally. Didn't change fundamental equation. Allies knew where they were. February 1945. Dönitz admitted defeat, pulling U-boats from offense. The Battle of the Atlantic was effectively over. Dayton bombs had saved an estimated 10,000 to 20,000 sailors by rerouting convoys and helping sink U-boats. Each spared ship meant dozens of men who didn't freeze, burn, or vanish. Men who went home, lived, and never knew they owed their survival to machines in Dayton. The waves who ran the bombs never knew either. They saw only numbers, not lives saved. After Germany fell, the bombs shifted to Japanese traffic until Japan's 1945 surrender. Then came total secrecy. The U.S. hid the entire Dayton project as the Cold War began, hoping its methods might still work against the Soviets. The erasure began. 121 bombs dismantled. Some kept for continued classified use. Most literally destroyed. Components melted. Plans burned. Records erased, as if they never existed. 600 waves women discharged. Before leaving, each signed new secrecy oaths. More rigorous than originals. You never worked in Dayton. Never saw machines. Never broke codes. If anyone asks, you did administrative Navy work. Violating oath was treason, punishable by imprisonment. They obeyed. For decades, some married, had families, lived normal lives, never told husbands, never told children, kept secret for 40, 50 years. Some took it to graves, died without ever revealing what they'd done. Joe Desch returned to civilian work at NCR, continued electronics work, developing advanced cash registers, accounting systems. Nothing as dramatic as bombs, nothing as important. He could never put his greatest achievement on resume, never mention it in interviews. When asked about wartime work, he said contract projects for Navy. Classified. The academy that rejected him never knew what he accomplished. No PhD, no recognition, no awards. Meanwhile, British scientists at Bletchley Park Callan Turing especially received recognition, though Turing only posthumously. But Desch, nothing. He died in 1987, age 80. Obituary in Dayton newspaper mentioned NCR's career. Contributions to data processing, survived by wife and children. No mention of bombs. No mention of Battle of Atlantic. No mention of lives saved. That would have been the end. But in 1990s, government began declassifying World War II documents. Slowly, Bletchley Park's story emerged. Books written, documentaries produced. Turing became icon. Brilliant, tragic mathematician who broke enigma. Later persecuted for homosexuality. But still, nothing about Dayton. American project remained classified longer than British. Declassified only in 2001, the story of America's NCR bombs emerged slowly as researchers, journalists, and historians reconstructed what had been forgotten. By then, Joe Desch was long dead and most waves had passed. Recognition came too late. While Britain built about 200 bombs, the U.S. built 121 in Dayton alone faster. More reliable machines that processed vast numbers of messages, including Japanese codes. Yet today, people recall Turing and Bletchley Park, not Dayton or the 600 waves who helped change the war. A small local exhibit can't match Britain's celebrated legacy, leaving Desch and his team largely unrecognized. Systems saw him as outsider. Then, when it mattered most, when lives were at stake, he delivered what elite couldn't. How many other Joe Desch's exist, talented, overlooked, rejected for lacking credentials, yet capable of extraordinary results? His story shows the value of secrecy and the unknown contributions buried in history. In a rare interview, Desch said, "We did work that had to be done. We didn't seek credit. It did matter. It saved tens of thousands of lives, changed the war, proved genius doesn't need a PhD. Only determination." When we remember World War II code-breaking, recall not just Bletchley Park and Turing, but Dayton, Desch, 121 machines in Building 26, and 600 women saving the world. Practical work mattered most.